Hey, we're live here in Nourish, Heal, and Thrive. We have another really exciting interview. I'm so happy to introduce Melinda to you. Melinda and I met several years ago. We were in the same group with Waking Dynamics from Brent Michael Phillips, and we started working together and practicing together. And really, she's so talented and gifted and brilliant. And I'm just excited to share her with the group today. So Melinda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Derek, for inviting me for this interview. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Why don't you start off with who you are and where you're from and what you do?
Okay. My name is Melinda Meszaros. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia right now. And what I do is what this interview is going to be all about. So, um, more like where I come from in terms of my past history of interest and work is I am a recovering academic, or put it another way, I'm an academic turned energy worker. And you may wonder, how can that happen? But really, it's not that surprising because I went into biomedical research at the age of 18 because I wanted to help people. And I wanted to do that by understanding how our genes contributed to our health. Then later I realized that, oh, but not any genes that I'm interested in. It's the genes in the brain that I'm really interested in. And I was really interested about everything in the brain. So after doing my undergraduate degree in molecular biology, I did a PhD in neuroscience. And I did research for many years. Then my son was born when I was doing my postdoctoral research, and I realized that the lab research that I was doing and um, this child, who was quite a handful, were not compatible. So I left research and stayed at home with my son. And then we ended up homeschooling. So while we were homeschooling, I realized that it would be really good, useful if I understood more about psychology, both for my own sake and for his education's sake. So I did a second PhD in educational psychology. So again, all the while, to my goal was to help somebody first in general, and then my son by me understanding us better and us as being humans better. So um,
Wait, so you got another PhD while you were taking care of your son.
correct.
That's incredible.
Yes. So yeah, I like to say that I spent more time in school than any normal human ever should. So yeah, I got my share of instruction in mainstream academia, all of that. But the interesting thing is that as I was doing my dissertation research in psychology, what did I do it on? On unconscious decision making. So even then, um, before I entered the field that I'm in right now, I was really interested in the fringes, in the invisible, in the underlying uh, factors in our psyche that influence us. So that kind of foreshadowed where I am right now. So while I was doing all of this mainstream research, and I taught psychology quite a number of years at university. So while I was doing all of that mainstream things, I started to explore alternative healing modalities because we needed them. I realized that all that science background and all my ability to do research and thinking and critical analysis of data did not give me the answers that I needed to deal with our health issues. And we had lots of food intolerances and whatnot to deal with that at the time was not really recognized as legit in mainstream. So I had started to research and experiment with all sorts of diets and fasts and yeah, a lot of things. And of course, with that came different spiritual practices and meditation. So I actually started this private project aside from my mainstream work, right, and mainstream existence, that led me to exploring Reiki and the Oneness University and many different things over the years. But none of it really stuck until I actually bumped into uh, subconscious belief work through awakening dynamics, and that was really um, it fascinated me because it was very analytical. It allowed us to go to that depth in our psyche that I was already interested in 20 years prior, right? And it was structured enough that it really suit my analytical and research brain really, really well. But I also realized that by the time I started Awakening Dynamics, that's where we met, and you were one of my first mentors there. Um,
Well, I didn't realize I was a
yeah,
mentor, but that's really cool. I was curious, why do you think um all the other stuff you kind of mentioned it, but you said the other work you've done, like the Reiki and the other healing, didn't really stick as much as kind of the awakening dynamics, but is
I think
there
it probably had to do. Mm, they were okay, but I don't think that's where my aptitude is. In terms of working with energy, um, I compare myself to some of the people I know who are really, really good and sensitive to working with a person's biofield, right? They sense around the body the energy and they can manipulate it. I know somebody who walks by somebody else and they would say, "Oh, well, what's wrong with your left shoulder?" Right? They just walk by the left shoulder and they sense something off. I don't have that ability very well developed. I mean, I'm okay, but not really my strength. So, working with the energy, the body's energy field, is not my thing. So I recognize that can be super powerful and very effective if that's a person's natural mode um, of working with energy. But what I realized was that I'm very claircognizant and somewhat clairsentient. So I just know things and I can read things in the field quite easily. Like these days, it is very easy for me to read a client's past life with great accuracy when I'm in the field with them. And I realize that that is my strength. That with my understanding of the psyche and um, this intuitive ability, which keeps improving, which is fascinating. Um, I know that that's where my comfort level is. That's what I'm good at. So I think when I learned the subconscious belief work, I suddenly found something that I was easily good at, um, and also something that I could incorporate my past understanding from psychology and neuroscience into. So it was, and I think as a person and as a spiritual being, I developed enough to have a clear understanding of my strengths and weaknesses when working with energy, and I became comfortable with being a claircognizant, because I think I was always a claircognizant, but it got me into a lot of trouble when I was younger, because I would listen to somebody tell me things, and I would not respond to what they were telling me, but I would respond to what I was understanding they were telling me. So I was reading what they meant, which was not what they said, right? And this got me into a lot of trouble and a lot of rumination over what happened, what could have been going on. And sometimes when a bigger thing happened, it took me like weeks and months to figure out what really happened. And by the time I got to Awakening Dynamics, I developed this sense enough to trust it. So I no longer question my readings and my intuition. I
yeah.
think it just required personal growth to the point where when I was ready for it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I always thought you were a natural because I mean, well, I guess you kind of were, but you didn't trust it because
By the time you met me, yes, I was a natural,
yeah,
but it took time.
I see.
So if somebody told me 25 years ago that this is where I would be sitting and having this conversation with you about how I became an energy worker from an academic, yeah, I would have laughed them off. Yes, big time. Like it was
Wow.
not a given at all. It was a 20-year growth period at least.
Yeah. Wow. So that's really an amazing story. So tell us, and you're doing all kinds of new things now. So
Yeah.
tell us more about that.
So what I did after so in Awakening Dynamics, I became a certified instructor and I taught some of the curriculum and I was coaching the new people who were coming in to the practice groups. And as I was doing it, I realized that first of all, I can incorporate my background, science background into it, mostly psychology. But I also can imagine expanding the technique itself and teach it very differently. So I left that program and I started my own, which I call Transformational Energetics. Um, and within that, I developed new protocols. I restructured completely how it is being taught. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And in addition to teaching the technique itself, I also teach a foundational course about the brain and the mind, for every, which can be useful for every practitioner and every healer, like coach and healer, because I go into, in plain English, go into how the brain works according to our current scientific understanding. Because one thing that really irks me is when people talk about the triune brain, right? That our brain is made up of the lizard brain and it has on top of that the emotional brain, and then we have the rational brain, and the rational brain's job is to shut the other two down. Well, that's not how the brain works. It never did. And this model was proposed 60 years ago, and there was not much evidence for that at that time, and by now it's totally obsolete and completely wrong. So my foundational course, um, the main goal there is to teach people how the brain really works so that they can have more accurate understanding of their client situation, the like why the client is saying this, that, and the other, what could have happened to the client to be where they are. So I'm thinking that when you are aware of what could have happened to a client, you are much more likely to find the right solution soon. That's where I'm at. That understanding is needed um,
Well,
for
I would argue that this would help individually. You would help yourself too if
yes,
you wanted to
yes,
learn more about how your brain works. I mean, I remember some of your, lectures that you did. They were so informative and so, so interesting that I'm sure this is just an expansion of what you did, what I
yes,
heard right before.
yes, correct. It's a big expansion on it, but yes, that's pretty much on the same along the same lines. And I think it is important because when you know what your brain does, you don't beat yourself up over things that it does because it's wired that way. Like it's very important to know what it is that we can change and what it is that we cannot. It's kind of the serenity prayer for the brain. It's like let's learn what is given. Let's see what can be changed, and it's important to know that what the difference between changeable and what is a given is. So that's kind of the purpose of that course. And I teach about really I start with the biology, like how the brain is structured and how it works as an information processing system. Then we talk about the data that this processing system works with. And then we talk about emotions and beliefs and how to hack it. So there are some practical things in there too.
Yeah.
So that is a big thing that I do. So I teach these three courses, the foundation course about the brain, and then I teach my technique on two levels. Um, the first level is really just a very simple thing that can be learned in 3 months. And its purpose is to give somebody an extra tool to deal with daily stuff. This is one thing that people can learn for themselves. For example, if they are going into meeting Aunt March, who is really not a very nice person, so that they can prepare for that meeting, be ready, make sure they are not triggered, you know, clear things around end March, or if they are going into a business meeting, the same thing, prepare themselves for that meeting energetically. And that helps with the emotional aspect too. So this basic level is good for these things. And then at the advanced level, we talk about, it's what I call the healer level. We talk a lot about trauma and relationships, and we go into depth around that, the psychology of it. And so I provide a scientific background to all the energy work that we do, the whys and the hows.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's so it sounds like you're teaching energy healing practitioners from almost from a science
Mhm.
background.
Yes, yes. And that brings me to the fact that the people that I attract generally are very cerebral. They like to know, they like to understand. That also applies to my clients. I just had a new client a short while ago, and I tend to ask if somebody needs to know about a trauma that they experience, for example. And you will know from our work that for past life traumas, it's usually not something that is very relevant. This particular client wanted to know, like her muscle testing indicated that she needed to know the story of every single past life trauma that we bumped into. And we went through the story of the trauma. She understood the essence of where the trauma comes from. And so there was a thread in the stories in these past lives that we found, and that thread continued in her current life, had impact on her current life. So it was immensely helpful for her to know that consciously, to be aware where her issues came from originally and how they came about to be her issues. So um, and this is partly what I really enjoy in this work, that I help clients have a very clear understanding of where stuff comes from most of the time, if they need to know. And there are some clients that who test like, I don't need to know anything more about this, then we just shift the energy. So
Okay,
yeah.
that's really cool. So, uh, where can we find more information about this, or tell us more about your classes? And
Okay. So I have a website which has most of the information on it. Um, if you would like to follow what I do, I encourage you to sign up for my mailing list. Every Thursday, I send out nuggets with practical psychology or neuroscience um, facts. So I'm hoping that they are useful, practical tips and nuggets of understanding. That happens every Thursday, and I have a great fun um, challenging myself to find things that would be interesting to normal people, not the types of neuron nerds that I am. So that's one thing. So if you sign up for my mailing list, you will be receiving that every Thursday. I have free quizzes on my website under resources, several free quizzes about different things, beliefs, emotions. Um, what else? I don't even remember. Lots, 4 or 5 quizzes on the site. Um, and I also offer a free 5-day challenge on decision making. And the purpose of that challenge is to help people understand the importance of the non conscious mind in decision making. Yeah, rooting back to my psychology dissertation, but it's essentially a way to teach people about their intuition. What are the different understandings and manifestations of intuition? Um, and so it's a 5-day free program. We meet once a day um, in a week for an hour, and there are lots of exercises and some theory. And by the end, many people come to understand when they can trust their intuition, what it really is, what it really does for them, and when it is that they should rely more on their rational decision making, their conscious awareness in decision making. Okay.
well,
Um, and on top of that, I have my one-on-one sessions where I, of course, practice my technique. And I also incorporate the emotion code and body code as needed. if it's needed, I use it. I incorporate mindset work when needed because it's often very important to work with the conscious mind as well. Energy work alone does not always suffice. And I am beginning to incorporate now work with the superconscious, so our higher selves. So I'm trying to hit all three levels of conscious, non-conscious mind. So the superconscious, the the and our non-conscious current and the non-conscious past. So
Wow.
that's what I do.
Sounds very thorough.
Yes, actually, I have to say that the way I practice this technique, it is very very thorough. It's
That's
it's it's
amazing.
seldom, um, it cross checks. So if I find something here in the protocols, then it would show up elsewhere. So if I like when something shows up here, I see the signs of it over there, and so it I can validate things within the technique. So it satisfies my research mind. Let's put it that way.
Really
So
cool.
the rigor that I was taught in as a researcher and as an academic, I can meet it with this technique. So I'm happy.
Wow. Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing all this. If you are watching this and you resonate with Melinda and you want to get more information, she's going to share her links in the comments. She has some quizzes, she said, and some her website and more information about all her courses. And I'm going to sign up for a newsletter because that sounds really interesting. And I'm excited. So, Melinda, thank you for doing this. Is there any final words that you want to leave us with?
I just want to thank you for inviting me, and I hope that um, this group will thrive and nourish people.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure to talk to you again, Melinda, and catch up with you. And thank you again, everybody watching. Definitely check out Melinda's work. She does amazing stuff. And if you want to be spotlighted here in Nourish, Heal, and Thrive, come and interview, and we'll spotlight you as well so you can share your gifts or you can share your struggles and get some support. So, uh, thank you again, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.